Here's a leather repair video on how to repair ripped leather. It's a before and after, so please sit back and enjoy the show. Okay, so here we have a really nice dining room chair. It's like a die-cast or bonded leather. This is actually a higher grade of bonded or die-cast. You can see, you know, the way you can tell the difference is if it looks really nice and if you feel it, and the skin or the cowhide underneath all feels just like one uniform thickness and everything. That's a higher quality bonded or die-cast leather. But anyhow, if we flip it around, we can see the issue here, and the issue right here is there was a rip. So you can see that there was a downward forced rip, and it pushed and it actually stretched out this area here. So we're gonna fix this up with our leather repair filler. Okay, I'm just gonna put this down here like this, because when you're working on a repair you want to have it flat or somewhat flat, so it's just easier to work on. So we'll bring the camera in a little bit so you guys can see what we're doing here. We'll zoom in a little bit, and of course we're going to fix it with our small filler kit, and this will fill in this area, it'll strengthen it, and then we can apply the dyes over top, which is a separate kit, but we're going to work with this one first. Here of course is our leather repair filler, really good stuff. This is the small 1 ounce filler. And then inside, of course, you get what comes in the kit, along with detailed yet condensed instructions. You get the nylon palette knife, which is a really good tool for applying the filler, does a really nice job. You get rubber gloves, sandpaper for sanding your work if necessary, and of course our leather repair cloth as a backing. You can cut it the size of the repair and put it in underneath. Now, this backing is usually, you know, if there's a rip, you put the backing underneath it and you glue the rip shut, and then this way, if it's a movable repair, the backing needs to be applied. Now this is a stationary repair, so you don't really need to put a backing cloth underneath here. If you want, you can, but it's not really that necessary. So we're going to zoom in a little bit more. And as you can see here, see right here, the leather stretched a little bit. Let me just adjust the camera here. The leather stretched a little bit. So if we were to apply a filler over top of this, we're still going to get a little bit of a bump there. So what we do in the shop here is right here, this is, you know, there's the rip. We have a lot of the fluff from the cowhide. We can remove that fluff. But right here, there's still a little bit of a distortion of the actual force applied downward this way. When it went in, it sort of stretched the leather. So we want to unstretch that leather. And the way you would do that is by using, of course, a heat gun. But you have to be very careful with this. When you're using a heat gun, always have your hand in and around this area, not to burn your hand, but to make sure you know how much heat is applied here. So we're going to apply heat. We're going to try to pull that stretch out of there. Okay? And it's probably going to burn away a little bit of the fluff, which is fine too, because that fluff just sort of gets into your way. So now the heat gun is starting to heat up. Okay? And we're just going to do these circular motions gently. And of course, you know, you can always pull away quick, pull away quick. You don't want to burn the leather. You know, we've done this hundreds of times, so we know exactly what we're looking for. We're looking for the actual stretch to fade away and to flatten out. And we're getting that. We can see it. Okay? Looking pretty good. You always want to constantly move the gun around. You don't want to let it just sit there, or else you will burn the leather. So, let's see what we got. And you can blow on it to cool it down. So this looks pretty good. If we actually did a repair right now, this is quite flat. You don't really see that area right here that was sort of bulged out. So it looks pretty good. It looks like if we repaired it here, we'd be able to put a skim coat in over top like that, and then it would be, of course, the same level as the rest, because this is a very, very flat panel. So what we're going to do, this is still quite warm, so what we're going to do is we're going to let this cool down, and then we're going to apply the filler. We'll be back in a minute. Okay, so we're back. This area is cooled down, okay? Now, if we look very closely, let's see if we can zoom in a little bit more. If we zoom in a little bit more, you can see all this granular fiber from the cowhide, okay, because it's a dense material, and this is fibrous. So what I like to do is I always like to just try to clean the little, whoops, there we are. See the little fluff right there? I like to clean that up because in the past, it's just got in my way too many times, and now I just make it a point to just try to remove that, because when you start to do some fine detail work, it always ends up trying to get in your way, or there's just a little bit of this in there or something like that. So I like to try to remove it. It doesn't have to be perfect, just try to remove the majority of it. Some people actually get a lighter and light it and just burn away all this little stuff, but we don't like to, you know, tell you to use matches and lighters and all that stuff. You just snip it away with a little bit, or with, you know, you snip a little bit away with some scissors, and that should be fine. Now underneath here you can see where the foam is and everything, so you can apply the filler right in there, because again, this area doesn't move, it's stationary. So we're just going to zoom out a little bit, because it's actually hard for me to see what I'm doing. So there is the filler right there. We're just going to take some of that filler just like that. We're going to open up the rip, hold it open, and just sort of push it inside there. And of course I should be wearing gloves, but that's okay. Just wash it off with a little bit of soap and water. So now what we're planning on doing here is getting it inside the lip of the rip, in and around. Open it up again and put a little bit more filler in there. Alright, that's enough. Okay. Now you want to clean off your knife, and then just basically go like this. Now if you can see that the rip is a little bit higher, see how it's a little bit higher right here? You want to push that down. So you want to push it down, and then you want to get yourself a little bit more filler and put it over top just like that, and then wipe it like this. And you want to continue to wipe it until you have a nice flat repair, something just like that. We can see that this is all covered. There's a few areas right here where it looks like there was a scuff. Let's put some filler inside those scuffs the other way. Whoops. Just like that. And then we're going to go the opposite way of the scuff. And if they're being held up, or if they're lifting up, you just push them right down just like that, and then just put a little bit more filler over top, and then just level it off just like that. Perfect. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to let this dry and cure overnight, and we'll be back tomorrow. Oh, and again, what you can do to make sure that your filler is dried is you take a little bit of your filler, you apply it onto the paper, and as you can see here, see how it's on the paper? Right here, we're going to let this dry and cure off to the side, so this way the next day when we check it, if this is dried and cured, we know our work is dried and cured in there. So we'll be back tomorrow. Okay, so we're back the next day. This area is pretty much all fixed up and fully reinforced. We applied a little bit of the filler onto the paper here, and as you can see, it's sort of spongy feeling. It's got excellent flexibility, and of course, it's got strength, full strength now. There's good strength in there. Okay, so now we know this has been dried and cured properly. So now what we need to do is we need to actually feel it. So if you feel any sort of pilling or anything like that, you would take your sandpaper, just like this. See if we can get a piece here. Okay. You would take your sandpaper, but generally when you apply the filler like this, this is a very nice clean surface from the edge of the knife. But let's say, you did a little bit of a sloppy job, or let's say there was a little bit of fluff from inside the chair that got caught in there. No big deal. You get your sandpaper, you put it on there, and what you're trying to do now is you're not trying to like sand it down. You're just trying to make it smooth. That's it. Now it's nice and smooth, okay? And if we do need more filler over top of this, that's fine. We can do that after we apply the dyes. Now what we want to do is we want to apply the dyes to this area and see how the repair looks. If we can still see texture or something like that, then we're going to put another coat of filler over top of the dyes. But I think this is going to look pretty good. So we've matched this color up with pretty much our maroon brown bee color. This is a very, very close match to our maroon brown bee color, and this is our leather dye. And of course it comes in a leather dye repair kit. This is a small leather dye repair kit that of course comes with your leather cleaning and dusting cloth. It comes with the cleaner, it comes with the sealer, it comes with the dye, everything that you need to repair the finish on leather. If you have a rip or a tear or cracking, then of course you need our leather repair filler, okay? So what we're gonna do now is we're gonna get our bottle of maroon brown bee. We're gonna shake it up. We're gonna do a good job shaking it up. And we're going to open it up and we're going to apply it onto the sponge. Just a small amount like this. And all we want to do is apply some of the dye on here to accept into the filler. So we can either just put on a thin coat like this, just like that, and sort of dab the dyes on in that area, just like that. Okay, and then we're going to dry it up. And of course we recommend always using a hair dryer. We use a heat gun here to speed things along. Okay, so we've dried that up and you can still see the outline of the filler, and that's normal. That's the first coat. Okay. See how you can see a little bit of ghosting right there, we call it? That means you don't have enough dye on the filler. So we're going to apply a little bit more dye on there, and now we're going to dab the dyes on that area. And dabbing them on puts them on heavier. Okay, so now we're going to dry this up. Okay, and as you can see here, you can see a little bit, you know how it looks a little bit matte around here, and then once we start to put the dyes in here, it starts to look a little bit richer. Once we, apply about 2 or 3 coats of dye over top of here, and then what we're going to do is we're going to wipe a thin coat into the whole panel here so it all matches up, and then once we apply our sealer, it's going to have this nice shine back. So what we're going to do is we're going to let this repair cool down. We might put in maybe another little thin coat, because if we can, let's see if we can start to see just a little bit of texture in there. There's still a little bit of texture, but this is really fine detailed work. I mean, you can see in the grain of the leather, it's a little bit bumpy and all the rest of the stuff, but if we want to put a little bit more in there, let's see, is it, I think it's probably cool enough. So let's zoom back out a little bit and let's see if we can get a little bit more filler in there. We want it to cool down a little bit, because if you apply filler over top of a hot or heated area, it will dry prematurely. So what we'll do is we're going to cool this down. We'll be back in a minute. Okay, so we're back. We've cooled this area down. Now what we're going to do is we're going to take a little bit of the filler and we're going to put it in here. And if there's filler left over within the repair, that means it took the filler, which means that there's a low area in here. But if we apply the filler and we basically scrape it off and there's no filler in there, that means that the levels of the repair are up to the surface level of the leather, thus it doesn't require any more filler. So let's do that now. I'm going to take a little bit of our filler and we're just going to put it right in there like this. Oops. Just like that. And you can take either the sharp side or you can take the smooth side of the like this. There's actually a smooth side and then there's a sharp side. See what side works best for you, because everyone's different. I mean, you can put it on there like this. See how there's filler in there? It still needed a little bit more filler. So you can use the sharp side like this, or you can use the other side and it's a little bit smoother. So see what works, you know, best for your application. That's what it's all about, because everyone has a different application and sometimes things work better for other people. There isn't just one standard way of doing something. So there, that looks pretty good. If you want, always make sure that you clean off your knife before applying some more filler. Let's try it one more time, because this is what you can do. You can try it a couple different times. So there is the filler there. And we're basically, let's clean off our knife. Okay, and then we're just going to pull it towards us very gently. Very light hand. So that looks really good. As you can see here, the filler is sucked up into the area needed, and it's all around the perimeter is just all feathered right into, and it looks like we almost have the same amount of texture and grain as the rest of the chair. So we're going to let this dry, and then we're going to put the dies on, and we'll see how much of a better job we've done. It's all about taking time and effort to do this little detailed work, and then you can have really nice results. So we're going to let this dry. A little skim coat like this will probably take about 4 or 5 hours to dry. It all depends on the environment in your home. But we're going to let this dry and we'll be back. Okay, so we're back. This area is all dried up, and as you can hear, it's really not rough at all. We don't really even need to sand this. And even if we apply the dyes and they dry, I mean, you can sand it then. It's no big deal. We just like to try to tell you what to do step by step. But again, each thing is different. So what we're going to do is now we're going to apply the dyes over this to see if it looks any better. So here's our leather dye. We're going to apply it onto the sponge again. We're going to put on one thin coat, just like this, and then we're going to dry it up again. Okay, and it's looking a lot better from here. We're just going to cool this down a little bit. Some people use like like a metal block or something like that. But if you want to, I mean, you can use pretty much anything. You just put it over there and it cools it down. No big deal. So that's cooled down, and now what we're going to do is put a little bit more dye on there. And this is basically the way you fix it up. And we're going to dab the dyes on a little bit heavier, just like this. And when you're dabbing them on, see how we actually create texture a certain degree from applying the dyes and dabbing the dyes on. So now we're going to dry this up. And it's probably going to need another coat over top of the filler, because generally, you know, all dyes have different characteristics and covering capabilities. You usually need about 3 coats of dye to cover the filler. That's just a good rule of thumb. Okay. That's warm from the heat gun. put something cold on it again. That's going to zap all the, yeah, it's nice and cool now. Okay. So, another bit of dye on there, and dab the dyes on again right over top of the area where the filler was. And then we're going to dry this up just to show you the coverage of the dyes over top of the filler. This is probably going to be enough so you won't see that ghosting of the filler, but we will see. Okay, that looks pretty good. But we're not finished yet. We're going to let this dry, and then what we're going to do is we're going to apply a thin coat over top of the whole panel here so it blends in, and then we'll be back. Okay, so we're back. This area is all cooled down and dried. Now what we're going to do is apply a whole coat over top of the whole panel to blend it in and match it up really nice. Going to get the dyes. We're going to put a little bit more dyes on here because we're doing a larger area. We're basically going to do this. We're just going to blend it into the whole panel, just like that. Just like this. And we're going to dry it up. Okay, and we're gonna let this cool down. Then we're gonna put one more coat on here. We'll be back in a minute. Okay, so we're back. We're gonna put another coat on here. Each coat that you put on is gonna look better and better. So now we're just gonna put on another coat, just like this. And we're gonna dry that up. We'll be back in a minute. Okay, so we're back. So that's another coat. We've dried this up. We've let it dry. We're going to put one more coat on. I think that should be enough. Okay, and we'll dry this up. We'll be back in a minute. Okay, so we're back. As you can see, this is looking pretty good. Now what we're going to do to put a final top coat and protective top coat on it, and the shine back, of course, is our professional leather sealer. Okay, so you'd basically get yourself a fresh sponge, spray it onto the sponge evenly, because if you put it on the sponge evenly, then application will be easy, or even. Easy and even. So now we're just going to wipe that in. Just like this. And we're going to dry this up. And you will see that it has a nice satin shine again, the way it was when the chair was new. Now, some people want even a higher gloss. And that's possible. All you have to do is actually apply even more sealer on the sponge and wipe it on so it's like glistening wet, and let it dry, air dry naturally, and then it'll be a higher shine. But when you apply it like I did, it's going to have the satin finish, and if you want to apply it and then continue wiping it while it's drying, then that will be a matte finish. So again, this was our leather repair filler kit, and it was a small leather dye repair kit right here. Okay, this is the small, and we fixed this up, and as you can see, it looks absolutely beautiful. If you put this in your dining room, no one's gonna know that there was that nasty rip in there. So you can find this and many more products at leathertouchupdye.com. Okay, here's just a little bonus footage for you, because saying one thing and showing you is another. So here's the back of the chair, And this is what it looks like. And if you can see, right here was the repair. You might be able to see it under certain lighting or a certain shine. Oh, there, see that shine right there? Right there, see that little shine that we got? You can see a little dimple in there. And that's the only way that you can tell that that's been repaired. Again, here it is. That's our leather repair filler and our small leather dye repair kit. You can find this and many more products at leathertouchupdye.com.
So there you have it, a video on how to fix ripped leather. If you have furniture or a car interior that needs to be repaired and you want to do something like this in your very own home or garage, you can go directly to our website at fixyourleather.com. Please like, subscribe, or even share with your friends.